Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Act Out podcast. I am Praneeth and thank you for tuning in.
Happy Monday, and I have a great week ahead. You rarely hear people getting excited for a Monday. I'm one of those guys who love Mondays because it's a start to the week. I look forward for a Monday and I look forward for a great week. Today I have an interview with a very special guest on my show. And today my guest is Dr. Mallikarjuna Rao, and he's the Dean of a pharmacy school. He holds a PhD degree in pharmacology which he earned in 1991. His knowledge on science is extremely vast. He can also beat most of us in a 5K and a 10K without even having a whisk of sweat. This episode is very special to me because he's my dad, and this is the first time I am interviewing my dad. So we're going to discuss the best practices and the science behind living a healthier life. And let's get started. Hey Dad, welcome to my show. Can you tell us about your childhood? Were you an active kid growing up?
Honestly, I was not that active when I was a child. I used to play some games when I was young. Particularly when I moved to my school and then the college education, I did not see the importance of being active in the physical activities. I realized that becoming a chubby child, I being obese kid, very close to obese when I was in professional education. I realized the importance of this only when I was doing my master's. I had a lot of free time in my secondary master's and I started jogging. Then I came down my weight. I could get rid of excess weight, more than 5-6 kgs. And later I used to keep myself fit by going to the jogging on a regular days.
When was the first time that you got introduced to exercise, nutrition, and etc.? I know you just mentioned that was in your master's, but when did you actually start taking it seriously?
I already said when I was in secondary masters, one fine day I realized that I was gaining a bit more weight than what I should have been. The health concept got into my mind. Partly the kind of education that I was into, where we talk about the drugs, the medicines, and the importance of reducing the weight, and then the obesity and overweight related problems, health condition, etc. I thought I should, before I educate others, should mind my body. And then I started reducing my weight. And then I could maintain even now. I'm 63 now.
That's so awesome. Can you tell us why nutrition is so important?
Nutrition is important. It's because the balanced diet, particularly the proteins, carbohydrates, etc., essential for our functioning. There are trillions of cells. The cells require the nutrition. And the cells also need the balanced diet, especially the protein diet, adequate protein diet. And these proteins to get absorbed into the system along with the carbohydrates or the fats, we need an appropriate diet. Sometimes the proteins may not get absorbed. At times the proteins may be in over consumption, and there is more consumption of proteins more than what is required. Something like a keto diet, it may be harmful too if you're concentrating heavily on protein diet. The ketones and ketone bodies are not good for the body. Therefore, in India, elders used to say, even in the traditional food eating, the balanced diet is always good. 30% protein, 70% carbohydrate. Accordingly, all our diets used to be like that. Of late, people used to switch more carbohydrates, and excess carbohydrates they get translated into more of fat, which gets deposited in the fatty tissue, making people to get expanded in the adipose tissue and gets deposited more and more, leading to the health issues, particularly the moon face or the fat belly or something like obesity.
So, about the protein intake, let's talk a little bit more about that. Why is protein so hyped up? I mean, even I'm always like, I need lots and lots of animal protein. Everyone in the gym or anyone into fitness, they always talk about taking a lot of protein. And you always insisted us to not eat a lot of animal meat. So, why is protein so important? And what's the adequate amount that we have to take every day?
In my opinion, as I said in the beginning, the balanced diet is always good. Going too much for the proteins, I doubt if it could help any individual to build his body or to build his vitality. Protein, no doubt, is required. For normal individual, it is the balanced diet. Protein diet is required in some people who have got health issues, particularly the diabetes and then other issues. Otherwise, one need not go too much on the protein. Too much of a protein diet causes the positive nitrogen balance. At times, it may be harmful if one takes or one eats lots of protein. The protein ends up producing a lot of ketones. If there is excess ketone in the body, and these ketones must cause harm, might cause harm, may be harmful to our soft organs, particularly the kidney, liver, etc., heart. So therefore, you must balance the protein. And there is a trend for the people to eat more protein, those who are trying to build the muscles. Maybe it is required to some extent because they're going for an excessive bodybuilding. Therefore, it may be an essential there. If someone does more exercise, particularly to build the muscles in appropriate places, the muscle is nothing but full of protein, and therefore appropriate supplementation of proteins may be necessary. That doesn't mean that one would go for synthetic proteins, which may not be good for the health. A protein, perhaps the rich in vegetarian stuff and to some extent of non-vegetarian stuff, may be all right. If someone takes large amount of protein without the fiber, and there could be some issues of its absorption, etc. So therefore, to balance the diet, one need to have protein mixed with carbohydrate and then other nutritional things.
That's so true. Sometimes I felt bloated when I ate a lot of protein, but then later I realized that I wasn't taking adequate amount of fiber. So that's why I felt bloated. Once I fixed that, I felt better. Okay, the very famous question that a lot of folks have asked me and they still ask me, and the same thing that I see on internet. Do I still need to exercise if I'm eating clean, macronutrients dense foods? My nutrition is super clean. I'm eating good food, but why do I still have to exercise?
Exercise is very, very essential for anyone's part of life. Whatever you eat more, it gets deposited in the fuel tank. I would say the fuel tank is nothing but our adipose tissue, which is there largely in the belly, the veins, in the neck, and in hip region. These are the places tend to grow more and more. Therefore, when you try to do these exercises, you try to bring down the fuel which is largely stored in excess in these parts of the body with large amount of adipose tissue. The fat is burned off. So, balanced exercise, when someone does the regular exercise, it could be simple walking, simple jogging, brisk walking, or a muscular exercises, depending upon the body's structure and requirement. It will remove the excess fat. Exercise for the person with a thin physique or the obese physique or the high physique is always necessary. Exercise makes a person, even a thin person, unless he doesn't exercise, his metabolism will not get triggered. Unless the metabolism is activated and the food that is consumed will not get bound up or will not get consumed to give the required energy for the body and for the living tissues. So, therefore, for every person, exercise that means a certain number of steps to brisk walking to jogging, depending upon the condition of a person, age of a person, it is very essential in my opinion.
What happens when you're not fueling sufficiently and over exercising?
That's what I said at the beginning. If somebody is doing or into vigorous exercise mode, doing large amount of exercises every day, and he is not supplementing the exercises with the required food and the nutritional supplementation, there is a great danger that person's muscles will get thinner and thinner, and it's called as myolysis. The muscle will get broken into the small fragments of the amino acids. Proteins are broken into amino acids and which are consumed for the energy. It is fine initially for some time. And if a person is not supplementing to this with the required nutrition in the form of carbohydrates, food, or the fat, or the diet, the process of a muscle break will continue on and on. The more proteins that are broken from the muscle, which are converted into amino acids, they are consumed. So the more amount of a negative nitrogen balance, which eventually lead into ketoacidosis, ketone body excess, it is going to be very, very dangerous to the all soft organs in the body. It's a very wrong thing. Many youngsters think about it. They're more enthusiastic about bringing down their body and they stop eating the food. I mean, stop supplementing the required nutrition, going towards the negative nitrogen balance, harmful to the body.
We are all in a world where we are constantly thinking about how we look right now, how can we look better in terms of looking ripped, in terms of looking fit. And we're so into this that we tend to cross a certain limit as well. What is your take on this?
It's very risky. Nobody will be able to calculate the amount of calories that he has consumed in, the amount of the calories that are burned out through the workouts. So you may have a fair amount of the balance between consumption and then input. If one knows about this, it's no problem. That's the reason what we need is a balanced diet, and then one should not be too cautious about the physique. After all, we need exercises, we need physical exercises to keep ourselves fit and to keep our body in a right shape. As long as this is meeting, I don't think we need to be too cautious about what is taken in and how much we could burn the fat or the calories, how many calories you consume. So we need to be cautious on that. One should not tilt too much. If you're so much focused on this, one thinks that he had done a workout to consume more calories, and if he feels that he has not taken enough required food, etc., your thought process always get disturbed, your routine gets affected, One day you may be taking a little more, next day you might not be taking that much. So one should not get carried away on this. One must get going with a regular activity and then just supplement the food habits with the kind of exercises that would suit to the one's body structure and requirement. That's my advice.
So basically, in order to achieve optimal results, your diet, nutrition,
Right.
and your exercise should be balanced.
You're right.
How can you increase your longevity? What's the science behind fighting diseases and leading a healthier life? And ever since COVID, there's so many deaths due to heart attack or any sort of cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and other sorts of illnesses. And the emphasis on nutrition, exercise, staying healthy has increased since COVID. So someone, regardless of what age group they're in, or wanting to lead a healthier life, what would you recommend them to start with, and how can they lead a healthier life?
Yeah, my only advice to the people is have a controlled food eating, have regular exercise. People who are at this mode, eating not too much, not too less, and into the regular exercises, did not have much problem at the COVID. Of course, the precautions are required, and then a proper vaccine therapy had protected large number of people. Of late, the reports are accumulating that the people who recovered from the COVID are getting into most chronic problem. This morning, I read a report in the Hindu. This is reported from the United States, a laboratory, which is saying that the lab reports are saying that the post-COVID problems are due to the microcirculation affected issues in the heart. So far, people are thinking the deaths are due to the affected microcirculation in the lungs, but this is happening in the heart, and therefore, people who recovered from the post-COVID area, and who have had the symptoms, who had recovered from the COVID, seem to be getting, of course, there is no 100% evidence for this. It takes a little longer time before the evidence would accumulate from all angles. So one need to be very careful. At the same time, there's several people who have had the good health in terms of good nutrition and good health, good exercises, and not having smoking, alcohol, and diabetes, hypertension, did not face a problem with the COVID and the post-COVID related problems. That's seen in the people who are affected, who have had the comorbid conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, obesity, respiratory problems, etc. So that's about the healthy life and what it got to be. If someone has asked me what should be the one that keeps people healthy, I would say that non-smoking, non-drinking, avoiding too much of fatty food, avoiding too much of a carbohydrate food, people who maintain a balanced diet with the balanced the exercises, or the more healthiest person in this world would have the longevity high with a clean health. And then no point someone living for so many years without having a life to these years. All our habits, good food habits, good exercises, to increase the longevity, increase the life of the person, is only to give life to the years rather than years to the life.
Oh, that's very nice to know. You don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't have any kind of so-called bad habits. Can you educate our listeners on why you should stay away from smoking, drinking, and so-called the recreational drugs or any kind of drugs? A lot of states in America have legalized marijuana, and a lot of other states are about to legalize marijuana. A lot of your friends smoke and drink, right? And was this a conscious decision that you took to stay away from such habits? And how were you able to do it?
First of all, outright, I would say the drugs are very, very bad. I mean, we call this drugs of abuse or substance of abuse. The drug is a very wrong term. Some people, moment we say the drugs, we talk in terms of the medicinal value drugs. But when I say the drugs, some people think that we are referring to the banned substance drugs or the substance of abusers. If you think about the substance of abuse or the banned drugs, marijuana, morphine, pethidine, and then morphine, pethidine has got in small quantities required to bring down the pain and some cardiac problems in severe myocardial infarcted patients temporarily. But someone gets addicted to these, morphine, pethidine, heroin, etc., are very, very dangerous. And equally banned substances for the other one, the marijuana and then ganja, we call in India. And there's so many other products which are very, very bad. They're very, very injurious to health. They will only spoil the person completely for two reasons. One, the health is affected, and second, they're not get back to the society, and they're far away from the society. They may harm themselves, they may harm others as well. Get into all kinds of wrong things when you're not getting these drugs and they're not freely available. The drugs or the banned drugs or the abused drugs or the substance of abuse are very, very, very bad. One must not go near to them because they're harmful to themselves and they're harmful to the society. That's about the drugs. Coming to the other one, the next dangerous thing is the smoking. Smoking has got more adverse effects or bad effects. Smoking is absolutely dangerous to the human being. It starts with, the nicotine starts with increasing the pressure, particularly the blood pressure. And it makes the person always in high blood pressure when he is dependent on smoking. The nicotine, it goes into the bloodstream, causes vasoconstriction, rise in blood pressure, and then with days, the person will become constipant. It causes a constipation, has a difficulty in all kinds of problems. That's about nicotine per se in the long run. What it makes the person totally dependent. It's called a physical dependence. There is another dangerous thing. Nicotine alone won't come. The nicotine comes along with the lots of hydrocarbons when someone is burning a cigarette or whatever the tobacco related problems. These hydrocarbons cannot be separated from nicotine. When the hydrocarbons are burned, they are the carcinogenic substances. They cause damage to the lungs and they induce lung cancers and oral cancers. It's well established fact that the oral cancers and the lung cancers are associated almost 100% with the smokers and the chronic smokers. So smoking is absolutely dangerous to the health of a human being. That's what the science says, and I believe in that. That's the reason I'm totally against. I abstain from the smoking right from my childhood. I never smoked. Even today, I never smoke. I advise people not to go near to that. In fact, my uncle used to smoke. When that room when I go, I used to have a suffocation. There's a saying that it's the smokers, they spoil their life by smoking, making it's injurious to their life. At the same time, they make others inhale the smoke. It's called a passive smoking, making the others passive smokers, and that itself makes the others health injurious. So therefore, smoking not only bad for them, it is bad for the people who are very close by and surrounding. So smoking is really, really bad. No youngster or no elderly person should get into this mode And it's not a bad idea for a person to think of coming out of smoking, which is possible. And the next thing, alcohol. Several of my colleagues and my students used to ask me if the alcohol is good. I would say in the pharmacology, the subject which I teach, we used to discuss alcohol as a medicine only if it is a little less than 30 ml, a one peg we call. Why? Because such a small quantity, it increases the HDL, it brings down the LDL, and it makes the person a bit energetic. It promotes the digestion, increases a small quantity of acidity to provoke the hunger. Those are all the medicinal values if alcohol is limited to just 30 ml. But in the reality, one who starts using alcohol at 30 ml will never be able to restrict it. The reason behind this is euphoria. The first dose, he may get euphoria. He may find there are some medicinal values, etc. Because of his inability to control himself, he will soon land in problem of dependency. One peg will become two, soon will become five pegs, soon a big bottle, which is very, very, very dangerous because all medicines, we call medicines as the magic bullets. The magic bullets or the real bullets only if they are the small volumes or the small doses. Moment the dose becomes double, triple, four times, depending upon the nature of the drug, a medicine, it can kill the person, a patient or individual. So that alcohol is no exception here. Alcohol can kill the people in acute intoxication. It can kill the people when there's a chronic consumption through the liver failure or the portal hypertension and rupture of the blood vessels. They vomit blood and die when there is a massive liver failure due to alcohol induction. Other than this, there is something like an addiction problem. Once they become physically dependent on alcohol, and health is totally hampered. Therefore, my suggestion to all the youngsters, especially the people who live in cold conditions, such as United States during the winter, they have the tendency of going for a couple of drinks of alcohol. It's good initially, but it will not limit a person to keep himself at one or two drinks. It takes into larger drinks and which are harmful. And the cold conditions, why it is taken, it is only to give the feeling of warmth. But in the reality, it causes the total loss of the body weight and body temperature. It appears that feeling of warmth, it's only because it induces vascular dilation at the cutaneous blood vessels. Through that, it causes a more loss of the heat rather than giving the heat generation. Therefore, my dear friends, alcohol is bad. Especially youngsters should not go close to that.
Oh, this is such a great information. So thank you. So my last question for today is, can you explain us the science behind enhancing your vitality?
Yeah, I'm a ardent supporter of the physical exercise. The only science behind enhancing vitality is the exercise. One might ask me, what is the real science behind the exercise that would increase vitality and longevity of life of a person? If I were to say, I would say, by comparing the human life with that of a machine. Human life is a machine which is running on a light. Whereas a machine, a car, which doesn't have the life in the beginning, we need to insert a key, give it jerk, and bring it to the life. Once the engine starts there, it gets on to the life. And then the life will go on as long as we switch off the machine there. Once it gets to the life there, depending upon the gas pedal that we press, it goes and it runs to kilometer. It will not run unless it consumes the fuel to give out the energy. The fuel there is the gas. It could be petrol or diesel, and which is there in a tank, and which is a fixed tank there. Okay, after you run certain kilometers on a machine which is running a car, it consumes the fuel. You go to a near filling station, you fill the fuel, it fills the tank, and if you fill more, it overflows because the tank is fixed. Coming to the life, I already said, unlike the car, and it is a running machine. The life of a person is a running machine. The ignition is already on. When we got this ignition, when we had the birth. And the mother has given us the birth, she has given the machine with its life. So we don't have to have and the switch to ignite or to give the jerk. The machine is running. When the machine is running, no machine can run without the energy and without supply of the fuel. Our machine runs on a fuel which is in the form of glycogen, which is stored in the liver, which is coming from the glucose, and then a fat which is stored in the muscle or adipose tissue, and then we have the proteins which are stored in the muscle and other parts of the body. These are all the fuel substances. So when we sit in an ideal situation, our machine is running, it takes some amount of fuel. The fuel could be the sugar or the carbohydrate which you have taken, or which is converted into glycogen stored in the liver. Or it may take the fuel from the fat, which is taken out from the adipose tissue, which is burned to give out the energy. Or if these two are absent, some amount of proteins are also burned to give out the required energy to run our machine, which is a living machine. This is what happens normal. Now the question is, you want to move a couple of steps. When you move a couple of steps, or when you start running, when you move a couple of steps, there is no issue. The sugar which is there in the body, which is sucked and which is consumed to give out the energy. Couple of steps, no problem. But someone is going for a brisk walking, or someone starts running, someone gets into muscular exercises, then comes, I repeat, then comes an important, the pedal, the way we have the gas pedal in the machine. Here we have a pedal, and which is activated. The pedal here is a metabolic switch or metabolic pedal, which is none other than an enzyme which is called the AMPK, adenosine monophosphate dependent protein kinase, which is called in simple terms AMPK. So the AMPK gets activated when you increase your steps from a simple walk to brisk walk, and it gets further activated when you start running. When you run at a faster speed, it gets activated. Or when you go for an extensive muscular exercises, this AMPK gas pedal gets stimulated more and more, this enzyme, and which increases the metabolism or burning of the fat and glucose from the glycogen or from the blood, or the fat from adipose tissue, so the fuel is burned. That's the science behind. So always keep in your mind, you should ask this question: did I press the gas pedal to burn the excess calories or the excess fuel which is stored in my adipose tissue? or the excess glucose which is running in my blood? Put this question to yourself. Then we'll give you answer. You should always focus only one. The way I'm pressing the gas pedal to increase the speed of the car to burn the fuel, here, am I burning the fuel in my body which is stored in the adipose tissue by pressing the gas pedal in us? The gas pedal is nothing but, I repeat, the enzyme. It is AMPK, adenosine monophosphate dependent protein kinase. If this gets activated, it burns the fuel and it keeps a person alive. It increases your capacity to run. It increases your ability to eat food and digest it. It increases your ability to keep yourself alert. It increases your ability to go to the bed. It increases your ability to get up early. It increases your ability to concentrate on your work and whatever the activity which you do. Why the fuel which is filled in the car and getting overflowed when the tank is full? And that is not happening in the human being. It's because, unlike the car fuel tank, our fuel tank get expanded to an extent. Therefore, without doing the physical exercises or without activating the AMPK enzyme or without pressing our metabolic gas pedal, if you eat more and more, the excess fuel in the form of the fat gets stored more and more in adipose tissue. The adipose tissue is a fuel tank for the fat. It will not get overflowed unlike the car fuel tank. It gets charged. It can expand to any extent. That's the reason you see that the face is getting swollen with more amount of the fat deposited in the face. The neck muscles get swollen because the more amount of fat gets deposited in the neck. Our abdominal muscle get charged up and get expanded more and more because the fat tissue, adipose tissue, gets charged more and more with the fat. And then our hip region gets expanded more and more in uncontrolled fashion because your fat gets deposited more and more when you don't burn the fat, when you're taking large amount of fat in, and when you don't press your metabolic switch or gas pedal to burn this fat. The fat gets deposited in these areas what I mentioned, and the person will become obese. The body, the structure, physics is totally changed and gives some kind of the unexpected or uncalled for a look to a person and his physique. Think every day one question or ask one question to yourself. Did I press today my gas pedal? To what extent? Then we have the answer for everyone.
This is such a nice story and it's so relatable. Thank you so much, Dad, for taking time and coming on to my show as a guest. And thank you very much for sharing all your wonderful knowledge for our listeners.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Active Hour podcast. And until next time, be ambitious, exercise every single day, eat nutrient-dense foods, and stay active.